What's up guys, it's Tracker707, and today I'll be doing a tutorial on how to install Inside Gadget's new wireless RX board that now supports the X and Y buttons into a Nintendo DS. I reached out to Inside Gadgets and they agreed to send this out to me for free to make videos on, so thank you so much for doing that. If you guys like this tutorial, make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below if this video helped you out. Everything I used in this video will be linked in the description down below, and let's get started with the tutorial. The things you'll need for this mod is a wireless RX board, a DS TX cart, or a GBA TX cart, along with a GBX cart to write a new ROM to it so you can use X and Y, tweezers, Kapton tape, flush cutters, a screwdriver with a Y0 bit, and a Phillips double 0 bit. I use a Mako screwdriver set from iFixit, and an original Nintendo DS. Although it's not required, I would also highly recommend picking up some flux. You'll also need 14 wires cut to the lengths that are shown on the screen. If you're interested in the controller mod for the Nintendo DS Lite, a link to the DS Lite Wireless RX Flex board will be in the description down below. I would also recommend that you have some moderate soldering experience. This is a very simple mod and it was my first soldering project, but I'd still recommend having some practice first. Now, we can get started by unscrewing the Phillips screw to the battery door and removing the battery. Next, unscrew the 7 Y-bit screws from around the back of the shell, then remove the back of the shell. Unscrew the 4 Phillips screws holding the DS motherboard in place. Remove the large ribbon cable for the bottom screen by flipping up the black latch and then gently pull out the ribbon cable. Remove the 2 ribbon cables for the digitizer by pushing forward the locking mechanism and gently pulling out the ribbon cables. Remove the large ribbon cable for the top screen by flipping up the black latch and then gently pull out the ribbon cable, then remove the wireless antenna. Now, we can take the DS motherboard out of its shell by lifting up from the 2 cartridge slots. We can now prepare our wires for tinning by stripping each of the ends of the wires, exposing the copper underneath. After all the wires are stripped, tin each of the ends of all the wires. Add flux to the wireless RX board and tin each of the pads. Now, solder down each wire to its corresponding pad on the wireless RX board. I would recommend soldering the wire for L so it faces the same direction as the D-pad wires to avoid having to bend the wire while routing it. I'd recommend putting a piece of Kapton tape over these points on the back of the board just to prevent any shorts that might happen. Bend the wires for power and ground at 90-degree angles so they sit against the side of the wireless RX board. Then, place the wireless RX PCB on the motherboard and tape it down with Kapton tape. Now, route the wires for L and the D-pad to the other side of the board like I do. Solder the wire for left to point P05. Solder the wire for down to point P07. Solder the wire for right to point P04. Solder the wire for up to point P06. Solder the wire for L to point P09. Solder the wire for ground to the VGND point. Solder the wire for power to the VDD 3.3 point. Solder the wire for Y to point R01. Solder the wire for B to point P01. Solder the wire for X to point R00. Solder the wire for select to point P02. Solder the wire for A to point P00. Solder the wire for start to point P03. Solder the wire for R to point P08. Now, after all the wires are soldered to the correct points, we can route them using Kapton tape. After everything's routed how you want, place the DS motherboard into the top half of the shell while making sure that the ribbon cables for the bottom screen and the digitizer go through their hole and the wireless cable is not trapped under the board. Screw down the DS motherboard to the shell using the 4 Phillips head screws and tighten them down in a cross pattern to apply even pressure to the board. Then, tape the wireless RX board back down. Now, insert the ribbon cable for the touchscreen into its slot. Make sure it's pushed in all the way, then push the black clip shut. Insert the ribbon cable for the bottom screen and make sure that the black part of the connector lines up with the white line on the motherboard. Once it is, push the clip shut. Just like for the bottom screen, insert the ribbon cable into its connector and make sure the black part lines up with the white line on the motherboard. Then, push the clip shut. Now reattach the Wi-Fi antenna. Before we close the shell, make sure that none of the wires will get pinched by the R trigger or the shell when closing it. After you've made sure none of the wires will get pinched, we can close the shell and screw in the 7 tri-wing screws. I would also recommend screwing these in a cross pattern to take some of the stress off of the brittle plastic. Now put the battery in and screw down the battery door. Now that we're finished, we can turn on the system and make sure it works. If you have the DS TX cartridge, then the link for how to set that up will be in the description. But if you only have a GBA TX cart, then here's how you would upgrade it so you can use X and Y. Take your GBX cart and attach it to your GBA TX cart. Then, attach it to your computer with a USB-C cable. Now launch the Flash GBX software on your computer. Select the Game Boy Advance option and click Write ROM. Select Try Generic Type and write the ROM file I'll have linked in the description. Once it's finished, select OK and click Disconnect. Now that we have everything finished, we can test that all of our buttons work. First, I test that all of the buttons on my DS work, and then I can test that all the buttons through the controller mod work. If you are using the new version of the GBA TX cart, then you will hold down the L and R triggers and click B for the Y button and A for the X button. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, then make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below if this video helped you out. Thank you again to Inside Gadgets for sending these out to me for free to make videos on them. Everything I used will be linked in the description below. Since recording this video, a new version of the controller mod for the original DS is released as a flex board, so if you're interested in that, I'll leave a link in the description. I hope you guys liked this video, and I will see you in the next one.